bowser and some beaters. But I don't think we're going to have to worry too much about fires this year. This is not going to be much grass to burn due to the lack of rain. So we are checked to the east extensively. We are now heading back down towards the south. And I think we might go see if there's a chance that there's been any leopard movement along that southern boundary again. So Tingana and Tundi crossed out there this morning. Not to say they couldn't cross back, you never know. And especially now that it's a little bit cooler, I'm going to go have a look. Also, I'm just going to pop across to the eastern channel quickly, see if I can get an update on Kruder for you guys, because the last tracks I had were heading back across. Now, he will eat little fish, but he'll also eat lots of tadpoles and other creatures. Now, this is the smallest kingfisher species we get here, and one of the only pescivorians, so one of the true fish eaters, and is associated with water. So woodlands and brown-hooded and striped, they feed more of insects and away from water. But the little, tiny little guys, the malachite kingfisher, very pretty. I know he's a bit far, unfortunately he's just on the other side of the boundary at that little seasonal pan, but there we go, that's what he looks like up close. And we haven't seen them too much this year because of the lack of rain. I think this might even be my first one on live drives this year, and hopefully a new one for the bird lists, for those of you who've just started. As I was just saying, these little pans like we're looking at here are absolutely exquisite, especially here on the floodplain. Now, when I asked Jean-Ray to pan, show you why we're on a floodplain. So if we start just over there, sorry Jean-Ray, and we start there, you see, now that is your sort of line of your 100-year flood. So there it starts going up. But now, if we come back across and become a bit wider, you can see it's quite sandy here. And the tree species that are here, you've got these nice leadwood trees. So all this topsoil that has been dumped by big floods in the past has been put here. So you quite often get some nice big trees, and you get quite a few different species of trees that aren't too common elsewhere in the reserve. And along with that, you get these beautiful pans. So, hello Zoe, 68. Zoe says, do we occasionally get thunderstorms in winter? It is possible. It is very...
Just look at the sky. Brian and I were just discussing the weather and what sort of evening we're going to experience. We've both come to the conclusion with these cirrus clouds, or almost cirrus clouds, not quite high enough, but there's definitely some in the sky there, that we're going to be experiencing chilly temperatures this evening. I'm very, very glad, first of all, that I wore a long-sleeved shirt, and secondly, that I brought a jacket with me this afternoon, because it is going to be, I think it's going to be chilly. I'm quite enjoying this autumnal weather in its own way. It's sort of, it's got that transition feeling. It's a bit strange. It's almost unsettling, but not quite. And it's very, very beautiful. It's making for the most extraordinary sunsets that we're experiencing. You've come to me just at the moment where I was about to jump onto the game drive comms to the Arathusa guide, so bear with me for 1 second.
From Chloe, if I remember correctly. So, or Zoe. Zoe 68, there we go. So we do almost always get rain during winter, but it's not normally a thunderstorm. Our thunderstorms are generally in the summer months. But as Ernest Hemingway said, two things one should never predict: the weather and a woman's moods. we're going to head out of this area we've been working now. I think I might meander towards the northwest, have a look around Sydney's waterhole, see if there's anything happening on those parts, because it is very, very quiet where we've been. Deborah, the armchair traveler, said, did I say that Malachite kingfisher was the smallest or one of the smallest? I think it is slightly bigger than the pygmy, but it is one of the smallest. There are a couple of species that you get up in Central Africa that are smaller than both of those. It would be the African dwarf kingfisher, if I remember correctly. Let me just double check for you, Deborah. I'm pretty sure pygmy, so 14 centimeters from Malachite, and there we go, 13 centimeters for a pygmy. So one of the smallest. Now the pygmies are migratory. They've already left. We had quite a few of them around, and I know a lot of you remember some fantastic sightings of pygmy kingfisher at one of the hyena dens. Oh, got a spider web. Sorry. Here we go. You can see we're heading west into the setting sun. Just checking for tracks here. Well, it's my pleasure. Mike in Florida, who's one of our avid birders, says, thanks, Brent. Kingfishers are my favorite. Yes, well, unfortunately, we haven't been seeing too many kingfishers with this dry weather, and maybe next year we'll get a few more. Now, there's a few kingfisher species that can possibly occur here, and we have seen, I think, a majority of them this year. Wow, Marilyn in Montana, a new bird species for her on her live bird list, number 151, with pictures. Well, keep it up, Marilyn. Mike, you better watch out, you got some competition. Got him in the gap there, on the termite mound, under the tree. You got him. Oh, there we go. Here we go. It's some little dwarf mongoose peering at us from their castle. Now, they live in disused termite mounds. They're little chaps. Now, they'll be probably going to be sleeping in this particular termite mound. Oh, there we go, look at that, see, grooming each other. An incredibly social little animal. Now, and they're very, very cute. It's the smallest member of the order Carnivora in Africa, and have a very interesting social structure. Now, very, very tight-knit little community with lots of grooming, as you can see. This grooming normally takes place now as they come home for the evening, so to speak, or when they wake up in the morning, and they're late risers. So they like to bask in the sun outside their termite mound before heading out to forage. Now, they have a very similar social structure to the African wild dog, strangely enough. So they have an alpha pair, and only the alpha pair breeds. Now, the most fascinating thing for me is, unlike most animals, I'm just going to try to slide, I think, a little bit forward. Which is better, Genre? Oh, the head's down. They should pop up again. Let's just see if we can get a better view of them. There we go, through there somewhere. And you'll hear me make some little noises. Oh, he's popping up to the right there, unfortunately just behind the leaves. Yep, well spotted, Jandre. Definitely not our most clear dwarf mongoose sighting. Let's try a little bit more forward. But as I was saying, that they have a very similar social structure to the African wild dog. But one of the major, there we go, that's what we were looking for. One of the major differences between them and most other social predators is how they sort out hierarchy. So if one of the alpha pair dies, what will happen is, oh, very cute. Has he got a tick on him? Or is that just a... Hey, he's got a white spot. Maybe an old injury. So what they do is they actually have a groom off. So if they're two members of the business that are of a similar rank, they will literally love each other, and the person who loves the most wins. So they're literally covered in saliva. It looks like they've actually been dropped into a bucket of water. They're so wet, and those two individuals will keep licking and licking and licking each other, and the mongoose that's the most loving becomes the next dominant in the social hierarchy, which is absolutely fascinating. Whereas most animals in the wild choose to fight and use aggression, dwarf mongoose use cuddles. And we'll leave them to their social grooming and getting ready for bed while we continue west towards the setting sun. Now, Marilyn is wondering, what is the most numerous animal on Djuma? And that is quite an easy one to answer. It is the impala. It's actually the most numerous antelope south of the Sahara. One of the most successful species in Africa, and they are able to inhabit a wide variety of habitats, and that's what makes them so successful. Now, they are generalists, so they're not specialists like a wildebeest or a zebra who will only eat grass. Impala are generalists, so they will feed off both leaves and grass, which obviously enables them to inhabit quite different areas from a lot of the other species. They also are such a successful design. There are fossil records of impala from 1.6 million years ago that are exactly the same as today. So very successful in their breeding and in their adaptation to inhabit as many different types of habitat as possible. The only places you're not going to find impala south of the Sahara, where they haven't been removed by people, but I mean naturally, is the densest of the rainforests and also the driest of the deserts. Other than that, impala are pretty well spread through arid areas, wet areas, and a really fascinating species. It's quite often overlooked on safari just because there are so many of them. Now, Zoe, 68, hello again. Zoe would like to know, do you ever see people with mongoose as pets? You do. It's not ideal, and we had mongoose as pets as we were kids. They were rehab things that were given by the Natal Parks Board, which is the sort of big people who look after all the game reserves in KwaZulu-Natal. Now, they are really fun and they are very loving, and you can imagine a very social animal with a very complex social system. You immediately become part of their business. For those who are not sure why I'm saying a business, just to let you know, that's the original or correct collective noun for mongoose. It's a business of mongoose. So the biggest problem is you now become their business, literally. Specifically if you've got males and females, so their territory is marked extensively with anal pastings, and any new person who walks into your house, the mongoose doesn't know, he will immediately anal paste on their feet. Zandre is giving me this wide-eyed, I've seen a track look, so we're going to have a quick squiz. Now, what track is it, John? It's a male leopard, I'm thinking. and the females aside. I think it's Tandy and Tingana. This is where they went south. Unfortunately, Jean now has got a sad face that these leopard tracks have departed. So, well spotted though. We get kudos for spotting the leopard tracks. So, oh yes, so saying why mongoose are not the greatest pets. Now also, if that person reacts negatively, which a lot of people who are not used to the bush do when they get anal pasted on by a mongoose, they tend to jump up and down and scream, which makes the mongoose a little bit angry, and they have incredibly sharp teeth. And then mongoose bites said screaming visitor after being anal pasted on. So we had we had banded mongoose as pets, and the one was called Lord Montague, because he was literally the lord of the house. And also quite difficult because he was a male. He immediately thought my dad was a problem because mom was the dominant female, and he used to give my dad an incredibly hard time, biting his big toe as he took his boots off, stealing his socks. I think the one day Monty got into very big trouble. He went and hid under my bed for a very long time. He managed to grab my dad's steak off his plate as he had just sat down to eat. He did some quite serious maneuvering to get to the steak, and as my dad sort of looked away, gone, end of snake. So we've had a lot of wild pets while I was growing up, and unfortunately there's never really a nice story that ends with the wild pets, because they are wild animals. And Lord Montague, he got eaten by a martial eagle. We had two impala. One was called biltong, the other was called pot roast. They both got killed by the cheetah. I think one of the only ones that successfully made it back into the wild was Hamish, the duiker. But generally not a good idea to keep wild pets if you can avoid it, as there's a reason they haven't been domesticated, and it's better to leave them out in the wild. So I know that sounds quite difficult. I mean, you can imagine finding a tiny baby mongoose that's been abandoned, and you want to pick it up and take it home, but it's actually better to let whatever's going to eat it rather than get involved. Yes, and I've just been we did have another one. We had Genevieve the Genet, who used to live in the sock drawer and was the most cleanly pet we've ever had. She would only go to the loo over in the basin, exactly over the plug holes. That was Genevieve. Now there's another problem having a nocturnal pet as well, as you go to bed, Genevieve thinks it's playtime, and having a Genet, who's fortunately not that big, leap onto your head at 3 in the morning is somewhat disturbing to some people. But generally we try to leave the animals out in the bush where they belong. Waffling about and looking at the smallest member of the carnivore family, Jamie has got the largest.
Here we go, across to Africa's biggest predator, the beautiful pride of Nkuhuma lionesses. And you can actually, from this angle, far better than we could see this morning, you can see that they are very, very hungry. Look at the way the hips are sticking out on that one female. She definitely looks as though she is in need of a good meal. And that could well be the sub-adult. The sub-adult in this group always looks a little bit hungrier than the rest of them. Not quite where we left them this morning. This morning they were even more impossibly hidden in the monkey orange thicket around them. Now they've moved out slightly more into the open. 4 of them there, And on the left, with her belly up in the air, the fifth lioness, exposing the white belly to the cool evening air, and the five of them preparing for the moment when they will head off and hunt. The reason why I got so distracted listening to James's update about that buffalo herd and where they were located was because I think that in the next few hours that will be the plan of the Nkuhumas. Whether or not it remains to be seen whether or not they decide to follow those buffalo. Quick clean and a quick scratch. This is very lazy. There we go. She's looking. You can actually see her physically looking for the itchy spot before she started scratching. Heads up. Not fully on alert, but definitely looks as though there's a hint of interest in her eyes. Okay. Well, one of the vehicles has moved out of the sighting, so we will be able to reposition and get a slightly clearer view. I just want to see what this lioness decides to do. I want to see if she... I think she's going to flop back down. Now, a couple of big yawns. Oh, look at those ferocious teeth. Now, a couple of big yawns, restlessness like scratching, licking their paws. Very often suggest that they are about to get up and move. And Cat in Tampa, you're saying, have these lionesses moved at all since the morning safari? Time to get up and hunt, ladies. And I think that is what they plan to do. That one female already showing signs of restlessness. Cat, they have moved. They've actually moved further west than their position earlier, so further into Arathusa rather than further east towards Djuma, which isn't what I really expected them to do. But I think we can expect in the next few minutes that they are going to get up and start moving across the boundary line. We shall have to wait and see. She's licking again. And as I said, those signs of restlessness can sometimes precede a movement. In that case, it was just in response to a fly. But we'll have to start seeing it from more than one female before we can say that the pride itself is going to get up and move further and go hunting. And you'll probably find that they will wait for darkness before they actually go hunting properly. But they could get moving before then. We've got probably another few minutes of them sleeping, and then it remains to be seen. Let's go forward a little bit. There's another vehicle coming to join us, and we need to make space for them. Plus, it gives us a slightly different view. Hello, lovely ladies. Isn't it interesting how this particular pride, when they're all together, all five of them together, they are perfectly relaxed with this kind of space between us and them. Yet when there's only two of them, that instantly changes and they become a little bit more skittish around the presence of vehicles. And that, I think, is it's one of the reasons why it's so important for us to really study their body language and their behavior. And while I was pulling forward there, I was watching them the whole time, just to make sure that they weren't in any way unsettled by our approach. As you can see, they're quite happy with us being next to them. This is definitely an improvement on the view that we had this morning. Thank you, ladies. A pile of very flat lions. That is the sub-adult at the back that I mentioned. She always looks slightly thinner than the others. That's for a couple of reasons. One, she's still a late sort of teenager, so all that growing, that lanky growing that teenagers do. And then she's also smaller than the others. And of course, with lion prides, there's no altruism in the way that they feed. It is every lion for his or herself when it comes to a kill. And as such, the sub-adult can't quite compete with the rest of the adults in terms of physical strength. What a beautiful picture these lionesses make in this afternoon light. I'm not sure which one Amber Eyes is. I can safely say it's not the lioness in the front. Amber Eyes, of course, being probably the most distinctive of this lion pride. She's got very orangey colored eyes as opposed to the normal yellow of most lionesses. When you see them sleeping like this, it's so hard to picture them as the fierce and efficient killers that they are. They look so incredibly peaceful that it's so easy to imagine them as similar to domestic cats. That, of course, is not the case. And those paws that look so soft and gentle are actually of tremendous strength. Those forearms, powerfully muscled, and of course the dagger-like claws that are nestled within their sheaths, truly are magnificent animals. And I always feel that the Nkuhumas are some of the most beautiful. And they always, even when they're a little bit thin, look in good condition. And it's so nice to see them looking like this after the tumultuous events of the last few months and the things that they've experienced. Losing 3 of their members, 4 if we count Junior. Oh, she's dreaming, look. That's not a fly response, that's a dream. I wonder what she's dreaming of. Chasing buffalo? Chasing zebra, impala? Maybe she's dreaming of having a meal all to herself without having to share it with the rest of the pride for once. Maybe she's dreaming of chasing after a handsome Birmingham boy. Either way, she is most definitely dreaming. That's not a fly response. Look at that. Where are you running in your sleep, girl? Even the back foot's twitching now. That's lovely. We so often get asked about whether or not animals dream, especially lions, since we do spend a fair amount of time with sleepy lions. And this is such a good proof that they really do. Just like your domestic cats or your pet cats and dogs at home twitch when they sleep. And a big sigh from one of them. And all of them starting to shift around. Oh, look at that. Big stretch in her sleep. In the process, kicking the female in front of her. Lions naturally do not have severe personal space boundaries. And Donna's mentioned that it's so lovely to see them sleeping so close together. It is, isn't it? It helps that it's not a hot day, so they're not going to overheat each other, although I've never seen that stop them before. They very often lie close together, even despite the heat. But it just emphasizes, and it has an important biological function. It emphasizes the closeness of the bonds between the members of this pride, or between any pride. They're all related to each other, whether it be a female and her daughters, or 2 sisters, or an aunt, or a cousin. They're connected by genetics and by shared experiences, and that bond is what makes lions so successful and makes them the apex predator of this area, especially at night. Not, of course, counting human beings. And that incredible tight bond will be evidenced a little bit later tonight when they set off hunting. I'm not sure why we've got Lona over there at the back. Maybe she's had a slight tiff with the lionesses, or maybe she just got tired of being kicked in the kidneys. There you go, Vic. There's the 5th lioness. She, for some reason, has decided that this afternoon she would like some space. Thank you very much. She could well have been lying with them. It might also have been that there was a patch of shade there earlier that was only big enough for 4, and she had to go off and find her own. Or maybe, as I said, she just got a little bit tired of being trodden on or sat on. The sub-adult in particular, I've noticed with the Nkuhumas, is very affectionate, but she doesn't always necessarily recognized when she's crossed a personal space boundary. You know, she'll walk up to one of the females, give her a head rub, which is all fine and well, and then sits on one of their heads. As I pulled in here, I told you exactly how I was interpreting the lion's body language and their behavior. And Zoe was wondering if you get any training on reading it. And Zoe, yes, you do. You do get training, and a lot of the textbooks will provide you with the basics. However, nothing can really, in its own way, match up for the time that you spend with the animals. So there's a combination of what you learn as you go along, and then there's also instinct. And you can learn, it's that observational skill is something that you can learn just by watching your pets at home, because a lot of the visual cues are very, very similar. So yes, it is something that you absolutely can be trained in, and then something that you work at perfecting over time, and you get better at it. And you slowly build up a dictionary of a lioness's vocabulary or an elephant's vocabulary. And by reading the signs that they give each other, you can interpret the signs that they show you, because at the end of the day, it's so important for a lot of different reasons. One, we're in their home. We're in their home, and they don't speak our language. It's imperative that we learn to speak theirs, so that we do not adversely affect them in any way. And that's a very important part. Oh. Invasion of personal space there. Foot to chin. This is she's about to get kicked. There's some cuts on the inside of this lioness's leg, on the inside of her back leg there. And then along her side, there's a healing injury. Something that obviously occurred quite a while ago. We saw it. We have seen that before. You can see it's picked up a little bit of the dirt. But something that's being fixed up nicely. That could have come from a couple of things, but most likely it was an injury obtained in hunting. Sorry guys, bear with me 1 second. A game drive channel, just need to use it for a second. Okay, and they're continuing their conversation. I'll wait for my moment to be able to say something. There's an animal I haven't seen in a while. While I take the opportunity to chat a little bit on the game drive comms and communicate some stuff, let's go over to Brent, who has the tallest creature out here.
Well, here we go. And I just said this morning I hadn't seen a giraffe in an age, and there we go. Lots of giraffe. There's actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 around us at the moment, feeding on the acacias. Acacia exuvialis, to be precise, the flaky thorn acacia. They must have meandered in during the day. I know a firm favourite of a lot of our viewers out there. And the tallest living terrestrial animal. So you will not find a creature taller than a giraffe anywhere else outside of Africa. Although this one is not the tallest yet, maybe about 6 months old. They have quite a scattered distribution range compared to a lot of other animals, and some of that is to do with people, but more to do with their specific habitat requirements. So you get vast gaps without any giraffe, and then they start again. So if you take the Miombo belt, so Miombo is a type of woodland. It's the largest dry woodland in the world as far as I know. It extends all the way from northern Botswana, northern Zimbabwe, right through into West Africa to the edge of the Sahel, which is not very good at giraffe country. So a great example of this is that you have giraffe occurring quite frequently and all over the place, up to the Zambezi River. And north of the Zambezi River, apart from the Luangwa Valley, the next place you're going to see a giraffe is in the Serengeti, or the southern Serengeti, Mikumi National Park in central Tanzania. So very, very strange that there's these huge gaps. And obviously filled with the joy of the afternoon, that little one. So those gaps, unlike with certain species where they've been removed by people, is a habitat requirement that has caused these gaps. Now there's a couple of species that are very distinctly absent from that between the Zambezi and the Rufiji River. Giraffe being the biggest of those. Black-backed jackal is another very interesting one. And you have up to the Zambezi River, and then nothing again until central Tanzania. Let's just try and scoot forward a skosh. Are such graceful animals, and hensing their name giraffe, and it comes from Arabic and actually means the one who walks swiftly. Zarafa is the Arabic. So as we try and get into a better position to have a look at this journey of giraffe, Anki Pank is wondering what is the purpose of their horns and that fur on top. Well, they're not true horns, they're actually called ossicones. And so their horns are solid bone covered in skin and hair on top. Now in the females, the use is pretty redundant. They don't really compete with each other. But in males, it's very important. If we go to the second one from the right there, Jean-Andre, that's a young male. And you can already see, was it two young males there? No, it looks like one, the one on there in the middle. You can already see it the horns aren't as delicate. They're starting to get a bit bigger, and they're starting to get the bald spot on top. Now, they're used in fighting. Now, giraffe use their long neck as a pivot, and they swing their heads and the top side of those ossicones into the necks of the other giraffe, or the other male giraffe that they're battling with. So he's obviously started play sparring already, and you can already see that the hair is becoming worn. Now you also start noticing, oh, there we go, Jandre was looking for a giraffe with the sunset, and he's managed to just find the setting sun sneaking through the clouds. He's looking very impressed with himself at the moment, but well done, Jandre. There's your giraffe sunset shot. I think Virm and Brian have got better, though. No, I'm only teasing. So there we go, and that giraffe is at the moment feeding off one of our only evergreens. It's going to be very important as the winter months set in, the buffalo thorn. So Michael is wondering whether the patterns, oh, there we go, a little jog from the youngster. The patterns in giraffe differ in different parts of Africa. They do, and there's quite a lot of argument about the speciation in giraffe and how many subspecies or different species there are, and they have very distinct different versions depending where in Africa you might be. And then the Rothschild, which is one of the most rare of the giraffe species due to where they live, and that's actually from human pressure and civil wars in southern Somalia. And then the West African giraffe that occurs in the Sahel zone. And you'll find there's huge gaps between these different populations. So there's the perfect example of what I was talking about. The Zambezi Valley pretty much runs, you can actually see it running there. And then there's not a giraffe between the Zambezi Valley and the Rufiji River in central Tanzania. And there we go, there's the different giraffe patterns for Africa. Really interesting, great question there, Michael. And you got me, I was on my way to getting there, and you were too quick for me. But they're moving off in, let's just try to stick with them a little bit longer. Joan, Jandre spotted another one here. Joan in Washington's wondering, do giraffes have very tight family units like elephants do? Not at all. They're a bit wishy-washy with their family units, and they do change quite often. But normally you will find groups of females and their youngsters together. The males are quite often solitary unless there's a female estrus to look for. But they don't stay together nearly as tightly as elephants. And we can hear one of my favorite calls in the African bush in the early morning and the late afternoon. Now, I know a lot of you out there know it. Let's see if you guys have forgotten your bird calls or you still know them. So if you know what bird is making those calls, pop me an email, questions@WildEarthTV, or use the hashtag SafariLive on Twitter. So, for now, there are only two different members of the giraffe family left in Africa. In the fossil records, there were a lot more. There were over 10. And probably one of the most interesting for me, and it's probably, I'm just trying to remember now how old it was. Now, this was also the closest relative of the modern day okapi, but they were incredibly large, massive beasts, and they actually had multiple ossicones. But at the moment, only 2 left from all of them that used to be there. And there's just a quick idea, the fossil of Santherium, the largest ever of the giraffe species that existed. And you can see how massive that skull and horns were. Now, they lived in south-central Europe all the way through to the east into China, believe it or not. So giraffe species were quite once widespread. Oh, look, there's a little bit of dominance going on between 2 young boys. And we might see a little bit of a head swing. He started one, but no, stopped now. More interested in feeding. Basically what happened is, as the climate throughout the world changed, particularly with Europe, and it got colder, a lot of those species became extinct while the African ones managed to survive. So Virginia is wondering, do they ever fight to the death over females? It is possible that they might get an injury that could result in death from their fights, but it's very unusual for them to fight to the death for females. Generally, it is quite obvious who is the winner in those situations. Okay, well, we're going to leave the giraffe to munch on, and I think before it gets completely dark, I know the guys checked the hyena den a little bit earlier, but it wasn't active, but I think we'll go have a squiz, see maybe it's a little bit later that there is some activity there. So while we head back towards the second most dominant carnivore in the Sabi Sands, let's go back to Jamie, who's with the most dominant, but also quite often the most sleepy.
And still with our dominant nocturnal predator, the lion. This female's been the one who's demonstrated the most restless behavior so far. She seems to be in the process of cleaning her feet once again. I think that if these lionesses do decide to get up, she will be the one that initiates it. Really making sure she cleans in between her toes, using her teeth in places to pick off the ticks that have settled underneath in that sensitive skin. Another big yawn. Just in that brief glimpse of her teeth, you can see that it's a young lioness. They're in perfect condition. Now look at that intent. Okay, I was about to say that intent stare. That she might have spotted something. There is, of course, always the possibility of a hapless animal wandering in across this lion sighting. Look at the intensity in that gaze. She's heard something. She's not quite sure what it is. She's just watching. Oh. Back to cleaning. Time for a clean around the belly as well. Now, Carol, as we watch our lionesses lounging about, you're wondering about the other pride that we see regularly in this area, and that is the Styx females. You were wondering if any of them have cubs, And the answer is, oh, having a nibble of the grass there. The answer is, Carol, yes. One of the Styx female has had cubs. Another big yawn. She's had cubs around the property to the south of us. It's a property called Vessels. And she's denning in a drainage line there. Which, of course, is wonderful news. We're all thrilled. I don't know how many cubs there are. Not entirely sure. That remains to be seen. And that for now, that den site is closed off to any vehicles coming to view those cubs. The other two were found with her this morning around that property, so it's still not clarified if any of the others have given birth or not. And on the same subject, Tim, you were wondering, are any of these females pregnant? And the answer is, if they are not nearly as late stage as the Styx females were. In other words, if they are pregnant, it's still very, very early, maybe a couple of weeks, a month at the most. They're not showing any signs of pregnancy yet. Their nipples are not swollen. There you go. Thank you, girl. Perfect view before she rolled over and turned her back on us. So their nipples are not swollen. There's one with slightly more physically extended nipples than the others, but I don't think that is due to pregnancy. And of course, with lionesses, they're in the same pride. They will try and synchronize their estrus cycles so that they give birth at the same time, or not exactly at the same time, but within weeks of each other. And therefore, there's more than one female to help care for the cubs. This is a lion pride that we have kept very careful track of, and I mentioned the fact that they have been through some tumultuous times over the last few months. And Chantal, you were wondering, on the subject of our lion dynamics, why is it that we see several groups of females and not mixed groups? And the answer is that is actually the way that lions work in the wild. A lot of documentaries, in order to sort of make the story a bit easier to explain, and a lot of course, The Lion King being the prime example, give the impression that a lion pride is made up of a dominant male or two dominant males and their females. That's not actually how it works. Oh, big stomach scratch. And I think the time has come for the ladies to get up. Big yawns, a couple of sneezes. It was the female that was licking herself that initiated this movement. Oh, look at that traditional head rub greeting. Sorry, Chantal. I'm just going to have to put your question on the back burner for 1 second while this lioness decides what she's going to do. Oh. She's going to sit on her pride member. That's sort of the behavior that I was describing of that female, of the sub-adult female. Sorry, Chantal. So how lion dynamics actually work is that a pride will have its own home range and territory, an area that they move about in, and they will sort of share a boundary with different other prides of the area. They might be related to each other, they might not be. Either way, they keep fairly separate from each other. A group of males, whether it is a single or a group of 2, 3, and up to 5, for example, we have a group of 5 here, will then have an even larger territory that overlaps the territories of several different females. And I'll use this as an example. The Birmingham boys are 5 males that have recently taken over this area. They roam about in a territory, roughly, if I had to guess, would be about the size of 8,000 hectares. The Nkuhuma's home range and or territory, let's say territory, so the core defended part of their home range, is probably about half of that. So the Birmingham boys overlap with the Nkuhumas, they overlap with the sticks, and they might overlap with other lion prides as well. And what they will do is they will move between the females if the females come into estrus. They might occasionally meet up for kills or for social occasions when they're in an area. But other than that, they move about on their own, defending their territory, calling and scent marking as they go along in order to keep other males from coming in and being a threat to the females and their offspring. So lions don't guard, a male lion does not guard one pride. We've spoken about the high mortality rate of lion cubs and leopard cubs as well. But Erlene, you were wondering, is there any chance that the Nkuhumas would kill Styx cubs or the Styx would kill Nkuhuma cubs, so vice versa? And that, of course, is because they could be competition to each other. The answer is it is relatively unlikely, but it does occasionally occur that lionesses will kill cubs from another pride in order to reduce competition to their own. I'm just going to take this opportunity to rearrange our light. There we go. Whoopsie. Sorry everyone, I'm trying to shuffle about the car and I nearly fell out of it. But it's okay, we have regained footing. So Earline, you were wondering about that. It does occasionally occur. Earline. It does occasionally occur, but very, very seldom that they actually, and that's one of the reasons why females choose den sites, not in an area where they might overlap with females sharing the territorial boundary, because of course territory boundaries are fluid things, and the animals might move about in different ways through there. So they pick parts where they are right in the center of their territory and where they are protected. And a lot of the time, lioness prides in a neighboring area are quite often related to each other. So they start to move off. Lioness prides sometimes split, either when they become too large or when a takeover is being conducted and there are females with young cubs that try and flee the area. Because males, when they conduct a takeover, will move in and actually kill the cubs of the previous dominant males. Look at that beautiful face. Now let us see if these lionesses decide to be on the move. I think they are going to. But while they make that decision, let's head over to Brent and find out what is happening on quarantine.
So great to have the wildebeest herd back on quarantine, and it is going to be quite an interesting couple of weeks with the wildebeest at the moment as they start their annual rut, and there will be much interesting behavior. Jamie said she saw some fascinating stuff with you guys this morning with the wildebeest on quarantine. Now they've been off feeding through the woodland and they've now moved back onto quarantine as it's got darker. Now, the reason for this, a nice big open area gives them a bit of a chance to see predators before they actually come upon them. And we can hear lots of wonderful birds starting to get, the nocturnal birds starting to get going. You have the little scops, owlets. Boop. Oh. Boop. Well, Crystal speaking about birds, oh, look there, someone's just arrived. There's a male coming in. There he is. You can sort of see him. He's just come in from the left-hand side. Now that one's just stood up. And you can see there's going to be lots of interesting behavior. Oh, anyway, before I forget, Crystal in California, well done. Spot on. The bird was indeed Shelley's Franklin. Or she says, as I know it, the beer can bird. There we go. This is what we're talking about. The rut has started. Well done, Crystal. Shelley's Franklin. So the males are going to be competing heavily for females at the moment. They might not be quite ready to mate just yet, but that's not going to stop them trying. So these male wildebeest defend a set area, and the females will move between different males areas, so they will try every advantage to try be able to mate with them before they decide to move through to the next wildebeest bull's patch of land. So there's a reason we won't be putting any spotlights on the wildebeest. They are a diurnal animal, and if we do that, it can temporarily blind them. So we do apologize if it is a bit dark, but there is some interesting behavior going on. So Chantal is wondering, or asking us to remind her, what is it called when the light shines from an animal's eyes? Well, we just call it the reflection, but it's shining off the tapetum lucidum, which is that film there that that's what we use to spot the animals when we're driving around with the spotlights at night. And the wildebeest actually is walking quite close to the vehicle, so they're picking up the light from the car. Now, a very specialist grazer, and they'll only eat short grass and very specific species of short grass. Yeah, that one's coming even closer again. Sorry, I was trying to turn off my other side light because otherwise someone's going to drive into it and I might blind them and cause them to miss the road. Beautiful African scene there. So I just got to have to move slightly just to let the other car pass. Oh, hello. Hello, Michael. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
Yeah, how was your leave?
It was good.
Good. Mike from Cheetah Plains is next to us. We're enjoying the wildebeest as well. Oh, there's a bit of dust bathing to the left there, Jean-Andre. Any luck this afternoon?
No, but in Gala and Gonza, we did pick up on those 9 tracks, but yeah, unfortunately, we couldn't pick up which block they turned into. So.
Okay, well, maybe you'll find them on the way home.
Yeah, maybe. You never know. Enjoy, mate.
Cheers. And as I said, it's going to be fascinating watching the wildebeest rut progress over the next little while. And having a nice little dust bath before bed. So they're probably going to bed down and ruminate right here on quarantine. So I might be able to hear them all the way from the Djuma cam, that doing, doing, or if they get disturbed by a predator, some snorting. Now, I'm going to do something a little naughty, but and then often snort back at you. But he's not doing it today, but you'll hear that if they see a predator, or sometimes if they just see anything, they're not sure if they snorted it. Okay, well, I think it's a bit too dark to continue watching these guys. Let's see if we can go find some nocturnal creatures that don't mind a spotlight. Now, I heard that little Scops owlet calling down here somewhere. I'm going to see if we can find him. We have managed to find one I think it was probably a week or 2 ago. Beautiful little owl, the smallest owl species we get out here. So while we try and find some of the smaller things, back to Jamie with the big ones.
Our lionesses have thought about getting up several times this evening. Apparently the thought is just too much to bear right now. I think they're waiting because it is a clear night. They're going to be waiting for it to get fully dark before they move out and about. Enjoying those last precious few moments of rest before the night ahead. These two, the sub-adult and the female, have been grooming each other beautifully. And all in all, demonstrating even more clearly a lion pride's lack of personal space. Oh, did your tail flick you there? That was interesting. Her tail thrashed before the itch, or when the itch started, and then she lifted up her head to scratch it on her side. And she actually used the tail to flick at that scratch. She's also got scars around her head, this female. We spoke about that healing injury. Those could be tooth marks. I would guess that they are. She's got marks along her neck as well. But I'm not 100% sure where those injuries have come from, whether or not they came from time spent with the Birmingham boys. One of the females was mating, but I don't think that it's her. Most likely, I think that those injuries were obtained, or could have been obtained, during a kill, during a hunt and a kill. Animals that are being chased by lions are very prepared to fight back, and they will kick and thrash their horns and thrash their hooves. I'm still looking at her head though, and those sort of look like bite marks to me. But they're too close together to be canines of, or top canines of a lion. I'm not 100% sure exactly what happened to her, and we'll probably never know. But animals, unlike people, show a tremendous amount of resistance to injuries like that. Not something that is going to concern her terribly much, and it's already completely healed up. Apologies once again, struggling a little bit to hear your questions. So if I get names wrong and the like, please forgive me. And looking at the injuries that this female has, and all of the places that they walk, Zoe was wondering whether or not ever lionesses ever get bee stings to their paws. I think that's what you asked, Zoe. And the question is, yes, probably they do every now and again. That thick pad, however, is impervious to most things, including most thorns. But the in-between parts of the toes are definitely not. That wound is still quite open, actually. It's quite raw looking. Now that she's twisted her side like that. That looks like a puncture wound. There's a deeper part of it. I wonder what she had a scrap with. Could be hyenas as well. A large group of hyena. I haven't seen them in this particular area come into such physical contact with lion prides, however. But maybe if they found her on her own or in a group of two, there is that possibility as well. Now, two of them having some good yawns and cleaning themselves. And this is a clear sign that in the next few moments they should be getting up. The female at the back now starting her yawns as well. This is how I often feel Oh, big stretches at the back. First thing in the morning. There's that perfect cat stretch. Limbering up. And here we go. Off into the night. Where to, ladies? Which way are we going to go? She's stopping for a quick urine break. As are they all, actually. Before they head off. Bear with me 1 second. I need to just get onto the Game Drive channel. The stations, these Ngala, now look as though they're getting ready to go mobile east. Okay, copy. It is on the northern side of Knobthorne Open, but the pan that leads from Knobthorne Open to Red Dam, you should see, or the road from there, you should see our lights. Copy that, no problem. They look as though they might head towards the Open itself. Look at her phlegm and grimacing there. She was testing the scent of the other lioness's urine, pulling it into the organ of Jacobson. Moving across to the lioness in front of her. And just to describe what I meant by that, she pulled up her upper lip, up towards her nose, almost like a snarl. And that's a way of drawing the scent in and up to an organ that is specialized to interpret the scents that the lion is drawing into its mouth. And off we go. Here we go, out on the hunt. Just to let you know, there are other vehicles that are wanting to join this sighting. At the moment, we have one other person with us. There is a third on its way. Oh, I forgot I need to unimmobilize the vehicle. That's not very helpful. I've got into bad habits since I stopped while I was driving Wendy. Alrighty, here we go. Through the bush. And on an adventure with the lionesses of Arathusa and Djuma. Everybody duck, wash your heads. Okay there, Brian? Yep. Awesome. Stop. Okay. This lioness has actually spotted something. Let's just take our lights off. There's something that they've spotted. So I've turned my lights off and they're hunting. Sorry, we've got to just sit in darkness. You see their body language change. Crouch down. I know it's very dark, but it's one of the things that we just have to do. There's obviously an animal on the clearing, and I just want to chat to the other guy in the Game Drive vehicle. Station with the Ngala for Jamie. Can you see what they've spotted there? Okay, copy. Confirm there's nothing. Interestingly enough, the other vehicle in the station has a much clearer view of what these lionesses can see, and he says there's nothing here. You're standing by? I had tracks for some of them crossing, and we had Lambionari on Philip's cut line this afternoon. Okay, now initially the reason... Sorry, hold on 1 second. Standing by. Sorry, Brian. Copy, thanks. Okay, so the lionesses are not nearly as foolish as we are. Now, I'm afraid it becomes a waiting game. We have to sit in the dark because we don't want to give the lionesses away. We don't want to give the impala away. So we're going to sit in complete darkness, and we just have to wait and we have to listen. And that's why the lionesses all of a sudden went down into that typical stalking posture. Now Roy's on the other side of me. He's watching on that side. And we just have to listen and wait for the patience of the lionesses to materialize into a hunt. Fingers crossed they're going to be successful. They look as though they need it. It's been a long few days, clearly, for the Nkuhuma lionesses. What's happened here is immediately the lionesses have demonstrated this incredible ability to organize their hunts. And what I mean by that is the one female split off to the right. She's about, I would say, about 20 meters away on my right. The other 4 went straight ahead on the left, to the left. And they're about 20 meters in that direction. So already we've got the plan forming, and you'll probably find that the female that's on my right is going to creep around towards the clearing and then chase the wildebeest and try and herd them back towards these lionesses. We've seen them hunt on clearings like this before. So that is what I'm interpreting is going to happen just from what we've observed with them. And of course, for those of you who are familiar with Billy Connolly, or perhaps have been watching Brent's Facebook updates, I showed him that Billy Connolly sketch of the lionesses hunting wildebeest. And now this is all I can think of. That incredible description that he gives of the lioness calling to her pride mates and going, Betty, go that way. You could just imagine the Nkuhumas doing exactly the same thing now. Telling each other on the count of 3 they're going to go. I'm joking, of course, but a lioness hunt is so well coordinated and so well handled. And just to let you know, I can still see them. Impalas are rutting, I think. I just heard an impala call off to the right. Yeah, that's their rutting sound. So they haven't spotted the lioness. They don't know that they're here. Remember how we discussed about the impalas, the males getting distracted by each other, and the fact that it puts them at risk of attentions from predators? This could be a perfect example. It's just, sorry, I'm just sitting listening to the game drive comms as well. It's just sitting in the quiet for a moment. I just want to hear what's going on exactly. I can see at least one lioness in the darkness ahead of me. Now that impala call that we're hearing now, if it was the call of impala having spotted the lions, there'd be lots of them shouting, bah, 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 bah. At the moment it's, oh, hold on. They might have seen them. It sounds as if there's just one lone impala trying to get the rest of them to believe him that there are lions here. Oh, that sounds more like an alarm call. People that are waiting to get into the sighting. So at some point I'm going to need to talk on the game drive channel. I'm going to leave it for now. Just take this opportunity to listen. I'm just going to very, very briefly flash my lights. One of the other vehicles is checking as well. It's going to be a very quick check that this lioness is still here. Cool. Sorry. Sorry, Brian. I know it was maybe a bit too quick even for you, even with our fantastic cameraman. This is one of the most difficult things for them to film because we have to sit in complete darkness. And we just have to try and describe what we're hearing. The cameramen don't have anything to focus on, anything to look at. It's such a tricky one to balance. But just their alarm calls, the alarm calls of these impala don't quite sound right. Just keep listening. I'm really hoping for the sake of the Nkuhumas that the impala haven't seen them. These ladies really do need a meal. So, let's just wait and see. The fourth vehicle does want to come and join us. Sorry, hold on 1 sec. I'll finish that thought in a moment. When a fourth vehicle does want to come and join us, we will have to pull out of the sighting, and that's because we have been here for the longest out of anyone. We've spent quite a considerable period of time with them. Out here, because of the way that things work, we don't want more than 3 vehicles at a sighting having a negative impact on what's happening with the animals. So every single sighting is limited to a maximum of 3, and occasionally, depending on the situation, we might even have 2 or 1 vehicles that are allowed in a sighting with an animal. And that's a judgment call that's made by the guides themselves in order to reduce the negative impact that the vehicles have on the animals. Obviously, we want to have utmost respect and as little impact as we can have on their lives. Sorry guys, bear with me a second. Standing by. It seems like the wilde are directly south, somewhere around the clearing. The marla are a little bit more to the west. The other vehicle might have a better idea. So, what that conversation was about, there's another vehicle that wants to approach, but he wants to check which direction the wildebeest are from the lions versus versus where he's coming from. Because what he doesn't want to do is, A, scare the lions, well not scare the lions, but sort of illuminate the lions, or B, chase the wildebeest straight towards them. However, from what I can hear from the other vehicle who's got a much clearer view than I do, the wildebeest have spotted the lions, so the impala, And the wildebeest have actually run off, and there's a lion in the middle of the open area. You can see now that spotlight going. So for now, it seems as though the hunt might be over. Obviously, as you can see, we have extended our show ever so slightly. Unfortunately, it is time for us to head out and to move off. There's another vehicle that is approaching, and it's time for us to make space, especially now that this hunt is over. So, for the sunset safari, we can keep our fingers crossed for large and well-fed Nkuhumas on a kill. I'm going to say a very big thank you to Brian, and I'm going to say goodbye on behalf of Brent and Jeandre, as well as big thank you to Rebecca, who was directing again this afternoon her second show. Wherever you are in the world, have a fantastic day, and thank you for joining us, and we will catch you for the sunrise safari. Cheers.